All right. Thinking of playing Slouch Hats and Eggshells. Slouch Hats and Eggshells, designed by Vance von Voorhis. Um, Published by Legion War Games, 2011. I own a few Legion War Games, and I've yet to dig into them for to say anything about gameplay, but physical components are very, very nice, very professional. So this is the Allied invasion of Syria and Lebanon, 1941. This is Operation Exporter. So just first the name, Slouch Hats and Eggshells. I had no idea what that was a reference to when I first got this, but I believe the Slouch Hats references to the soft field headgear of the Australian Army, and Eggshells is, I guess, a reference to the fact that many experts at the time before the start of this campaign assessed that the Vichy French in Syria and Lebanon, that their defense would crumble like eggshells. Um, so um, obviously we are talking map-wise. First of all, it comes with one standard size map. One standard size map. And actually, because we have on both sides of the map, we have various, game tracks, holding boxes, and various status play aids, terrain key. Yeah, given all this stuff, really the play area of the map is really a half-sized. This is really half-sized. And so obviously, again, we're talking about Syria, talking about the very far western part of Iraq, down Transjordan, something called Jabal el Druze, this small area here. We have Palestine, up to Lebanon, up to the Sanjak of Latakia, and just a bit of Turkey there. With respect to landmarks, where this map covers, we're talking about Haifa to Aleppo, and we're talking, obviously the coast with Beirut, and Tripoli. Over here to the east, actually nothing I really recognize. In the center, we got Palmyra. We've got Homs, Damascus, Deraa, and those are the main points of interest and landmarks that I recognize. It's a very pretty map. I'm not sure I personally care for the very dark hex grid, and the hex IDs are fairly big too. I know that these 2 points would be pluses for some gamers, but I'll just say, as you can clearly see, this is a fairly dark hex grid. But it is a very nice map. It's a paper map, but we're talking definitely poster quality. All right, so looking at the Board Game Geek user comments. I do like to look at the user comments to help me make my game purchases. But I don't always take the comments, I guess, literally or how they were necessarily intended. What I mean by that is some user on BoardGameGeek might give a game, let's say, a very low rating, and the comment is something like, looks like a 1980s era war game. Well, that isn't necessarily a negative for me in my book. Another user might say this game moves very slowly. Again, that isn't necessarily a negative. I mean, it could be a plus or a negative. It depends on the context, right? And it depends on what you're interested in. So one thing I did learn about using the BoardGameGeek user comments is that I now reverse the order. When I open the comments, when I'm looking at a game, I reverse the comments right away, because when I first open the window, it goes from highest rated down to lowest rating. And I definitely seems there's definitely a pattern of the first couple for many games, not all, but many games. You have some true believers who are going to say something along the lines of greatest game ever. I mean, it is nice to see those. It is nice to read those comments, but I would rather start off at the bottom. I would like to hear the detractors first, and then I can move up to the more positive comments. So that's what I did here. So I'm looking at Slouch hats and eggshells. These are the BoardGameGeek user comments. There actually aren't that many. I guess I'm surprised there aren't more. But you know. So starting again at the bottom, seriously overwrought for the size of the campaign. This is a good example. Now, if on first hearing that, not sure what to make of that, but if the user is trying to say that there are fairly complex rule mechanics for the overall scope of the game, again, it's not necessarily a negative for me, because sometimes I like to play and explore a game that has fairly complex rules mechanics in what is otherwise a fairly small scope game. I mean, simple rules mechanics don't have to just go with small scope games, and large scope games don't simply have to have more complex rules mechanics, obviously. So this is actually what I'm kind of looking at in a game like Slouch Hats and Eggshells. Look at some of Fonbori's further design refinements in a new format, new graphical treatment, in a new up-to-date graphical treatment, which you definitely get here, and a fairly small scope game. Yeah. A reference to the scale may be way off, since most of the gameplay is over a 3 hex wide front. Is that a reference to the fact that the Allies might be driving south to north through what is essentially a narrow, corridor between the Mediterranean and the desert out here in Transjordan and Iraq? Okay. I'll have to see that in play. The turn sequence reads and feels longer than a pre-flight checklist for a B-52. Again, not sure what that's supposed to reference. If that's a reference to the fact that the rules have, and we'll get to it, an expanded sequence of play, I really like expanded sequences of play. I really like those, and I'm sure I'll get an opportunity to talk about that more. But no, I like expanded sequences of play, and yeah, again, if it's too long, I guess I'll see that in play. Serious rules streamlining. This user recommends. Oh, okay. This seems to be the trend with this designer. So talking about Fonbori's, no elegance, just tedious long sequences for little effect. Okay, no elegance. Elegance can be important. Elegance can certainly be appreciated, but elegance is not the. I don't think elegance is like the single, um, measure by which all game design should be put against. Just tedious long sequences. Again, definitely. Okay, so when I get to this game, this will be the third, I believe, if I remember correctly, the third Phone Boreas iteration for me. I started with Hellfire Pass and liked it a lot, discovered things in play that were not obvious on just an initial reading of the rules. I'm still enjoying playing Bloody Karen, which is I guess I would say a slightly larger, slightly larger treatment, similar to Hellfire Pass. And now this one would be third iteration. That what's the reference to tedious sequences? Again, I guess I'm okay with tedious sequences if the tedious sequences are relating to, I guess, military decisions and operations that I can understand and find some accurate simulation value in those sequences and little effect. Again, um, I have enjoyed playing games that had a lot of, I guess, a lot of action without either side necessarily making a lot of progress. I guess another way of saying that is a lot of activity without a lot of effect in a simple, well, I guess if a user is thinking about effects in terms of, units destroyed or even units forced to retreat or whatever the case may be, again, a game can be fun, it can be interesting, and a game can impart some historical insights, uh, even though from a strictly, I guess, game design sense, that there isn't a lot of effect, um, or there aren't a lot of effects transparent on the game board. So I'll just see about that in play. One map, low number of counters, yes. So I said one, looks like a standard size map, a little over 180 counters, and just a real quick. I'm just eyeballing here, right? So the pile of counters here, which we'll look at, which I want to look at here. Looks to me about half combat units, and combat units represent units that took part or could have taken part in this campaign. Scale seems wrong. So scale seems wrong. Let's look at the turn track here. Short turn track, as you can see. I mean, we're only talking 8 turns, and I believe the historical scenario only goes to turn 6. So each of these turns, you see the 1 June, 2 June, and 3 June. So each turn represents, roughly 10 days. Each month roughly divided into 3 parts, or roughly 10 days. Right away, that's making me think there's a lot going on, or could go on per turn. I guess these turns are not going to be flying by, right? Scale, I think it's 10 miles from side to side for the hexes. 10 miles side by side, 16.1 kilometers side to side. And units, I think we're talking company up to brigade. Company up to brigade. See a battalion. I see a battalion. Regiment, brigade. That looks to be the most common. Brigade. And battalion, regiment, battalion, some more regiments, battalion, yeah. So that's the scale we're talking. I guess there is more to scale than just time, ground distance and unit organization, but I'll see in my gameplay what I think about this recurring issue, I guess, of the scale somehow being off. Supply rules, yeah. Definitely some comments about the supply rules being more, I guess too complex for the rest of the game mechanics. So, with respect to the complexity of movement and combat, for example, the supply rules seem to be way overly complex. But if I look at this game, being Operation Exporter, if I look at this game as a kind of use this as a stepping stone to another game I really want to get to, and that's Reluctant Enemies, OCS, then I guess I'm actually, I guess in that sense, I'm really looking forward to the supply rules in this game being, let's just say, fully developed. We'll definitely look at those later. But yeah, that's definitely a comment about the complexity of the supply rules for the rest of the game. Very good little game. Top-notch components, nice clear map. Yeah, there are some nice player aids we're going to get to in just a minute. Classic and beautiful counters, and yeah, wow. Let's just start with the first one. So we can get a combat unit here. Let's get a good combat unit. Here we go. This, I mean, I agree. These are, I'm really okay with half-inch counters, but no, you're talking 0.6-inch counters here. These are very nice size, and for this size counter, those are really nice sized numbers on their values. Very nice. And look at that. These counters have nice. All right, I really don't want to go so much into components here, but yeah, these are really nice and very, very usable. Definitely nothing thin or too thick here. And this is pretty much the state of the art here with respect to counter design and everything. Nice use of color. Yeah, very nice. Very nice counters. Core rules are classic. Several peculiarities of the conflict. Light units, air support, and replacements that have a big influence on the gameplay and should not be omitted. Sure. Supply rules are not very intuitive. Outcome is not obvious. Many opportunities of good defense in the South Lebanon mountains and hills. All right, so we're talking northern Lebanon down to southern Lebanon. Southern Lebanon there. Boy, I really positioned that light wrong today, didn't I? Okay, southern Lebanon, Tyre, Litani River. So Lebanon's coming over to here, traveling up here. So southern Lebanon right there. There are random events which can play an important role in the game. Unbalanced situation. Game is simple, elegant, and very interesting. Obviously, we're getting to the upper end of the ratings now. Very interesting. Each player has lots of options to achieve their objectives. Chit event activation allows for new possibilities with various consequences on the gameplay. Rules and gameplay are fair and clear, giving a historical representation of the facts. Logistics system could have been incorporated with lighter rules instead of having 3 different types of supply. It does. This rule set has general supply, movement supply, and combat supply. Now, that certainly could be overdone, but I'm very interested in seeing how this, breaking this down into movement and combat supply. I'm very interested in seeing how that actually plays out. Solid operational war game, plays smoothly. That's nice to hear. Little known campaign. Top-notch components, good rule book. Actually, the bit that I've looked at the rule book, it does look nice and sound. Doesn't mean there won't be important errata to pay attention to. Similar to GMT East Front series, but a lot simpler. Strategically interesting situation. Game forces players to make tough decisions. That's good. It's a small war game. Okay, game is a keeper. Okay, so that was the general comments. And it was a while ago, but I'm pretty sure I reviewed all those before I went ahead and purchased the game. So take a look at the map. I already talked about both sides of the map have all sorts of game. It is used for game purposes, and really the play area is the center part of the map. We have, and I will say, I did not see terrain depictions other than what is on the map up there in the corner. So, but right away I recognize, let's look at this Jabal Ed Druze area. Right away I recognize, and this is rough, this brown, tan is rough. We go into the brown, light brown hills, dark brown mountains, which is exactly like in Karen, and I think in Hellfire Pass too. So once again, I like the terrain differentiation like that, and I'm definitely getting used to that in Fonbori's design. This one is interesting. This gray here, we've got a lot of gray out here in the east, Transjordan area. This is game has a lava field, so we'll take a look at those effects later. But yeah, this gray is lava fields. All right, again, very similar to other Fonbori's designs. We've got main roads, the double lines, secondary roads or minor roads, and trail. So actually the major road, minor road, and trail framework is again very I'm coming to learn this well from Fonbori's designs. What are they? We got swamps. This kind of dark green, almost looks like a watercolor mark. That's swamp. Escarpment. Escarpment is this design there next to the mountains there. So we do have escarpment at this scale. International borders, ports, airfields, entry areas. There's yellow marking prohibited. Oh, okay. So Turkey up here is no entry. Okay, so hash marks prohibited. All right, very nice map. Very easy to read all these town names, town and city names. Yeah, we got cities and towns. So the red dots, cities, black dots, towns. All right, so go on to again, another thing I would expect from Fonbori's very nice setup cards. Very nice setup cards, actually. Very pretty, clearly laid out. I wonder how many errors are on these two setup cards, though I don't know that yet. I should take a look at that. So right away, looking at the Access setup card, scenarios 1 and 2. I'll get to this. There are 2 scenarios in this game. There's basically a historical scenario and an alternate history or what-if scenario with that features German intervention. So there's the setup there. Looks fairly clear. Hexes, holding boxes. Okay, and then we got reinforcements, scenarios 1 and 2. Reinforcement scenario 2 only, and oh, okay, that's all there. And conditional entry groups. Right away, you see we're going to get to some events. So this says event C, German commandos. Event I, Desert Raiders. Event G, German paratroops. Event D, Turkish armor. Interesting, Turkish armor. So conditional entry groups tied to the events, which we'll look at more closely. Allied setup card, all very similar. Yep, conditional entry groups for the Allies. Event A, the Alawais revolt. Event B, the Druze revolt. Event N, extra supply. And event P, additional air unit. So these events look like they're going to be fairly interesting for the scale of this game. All right, counter information sheet looks fairly complete. I actually didn't find the armor unit on here. You have the combat units complete in complete detail. There isn't anything unusual here, especially from earlier Phone Boris designs, but red box behind the movement allowance means motorized unit. That's key for the actual rules. And stacking value, as I'm getting used to, the smaller number to the left of the unit type. White background equals a 2-step unit. I'm assuming, and if that's true, that's nice. So if we're saying we have the Essex Hob, no. Yeah, okay, Essex Hob Infantry Battalion. It has a stacking value of 1, and its back is clear. So this is a 1-step unit. Here's the 20th Brigade, 10th Indian Division. I'm assuming I got that right. A stacking value of 2, and the white box means it should be a 2-step unit, which it is. That's nice to see, I guess, so you can see at a glance what is a 1 or 2-step unit. Now the only thing I don't understand though is in the game, are there any 2 stacking value units that aren't 2 steps? That I don't know. And are there any 1 stacking value units that are 2-step? That I don't know. We'll see. I understand, and I'm perfectly okay with the fact that these rules I'm not positive, but if these rules have been made for a series, so the rules are written in a way that they can be expanded on later, I'm okay with that. Okay, so that we do have ranged artillery in this game, and in this game, the backs of the artillery are used to show fired status. So I'm going to go ahead and go into these allied units. So nice truck supply units. Infantry brigade. Let's see. Carpathian Polish brigade. This is perfectly understandable if you are familiar with military map symbology, but the double boxes just mean that more than one unit is represented by this graphical symbol. Let's see, so obviously we have the units that have the vehicle silhouettes. Okay, it looks like a kind of armored Jeep there, like armored car. And the tank. Tank there. So got some motorized and tank unit. I can't remember what I was looking for. What was it? Oh, artillery. Artillery. So let's take a quick look. Oh, right. I remember this from a comment on Board Game Geek. There actually aren't a lot of artillery units at all in this game. There may only be one. So who had? I'm assuming if there is really one artillery unit, I would assume that the Allies had it. Huh. All right. Well, we'll look at it later when it comes up. We have naval units. Naval units there. So this is a supporting strength of 2 and an action rating of 5 in the parentheses there. And on the back, Force B sailed. And I guess nice air units. Very nice air units with silhouettes there. Also very variable support strength with the question mark there. Or set support strength and then range. Now again, this might be, this is another thing that suggests perhaps series rules, is that I did notice some air counters, some air units that have ranges that go way beyond the map dimensions here. So again, I mean, if these rules are going to be applied to another map, another theater, hey, hopefully Italy, I always like Italy games, then I understand. I mean, you know, here's one, you know, this Axis unit has a range of 32 hexes. That has, that's got to be, yeah, that's side to side of the map, and 45, it's got to be like 1.5 times the map. So again, and my aim is horrible with this camera. All right, 45 range. You know, counter graphics must be very hard to get exactly right from design to production. Because now that I'm looking at it, actually, those black numbers, if not even the silhouette, would actually could actually use some outlining. Not too much, but maybe a little bit of outlining. Okay, so air units with range. There. Okay, and then finally the supply units. So we have the supply dump, and we have, you know, the mobile supply, which I like, little truck units there. Okay, so truck unit or mobile supply unit. Mobile supply unit, supply points and movement allowance. So what happens on the back? Okay, so 1 strength, 2 strength, 1 strength supply dump, 2 strength supply dump. Okay, and special capabilities and restrictions are summarized. Nice. Again, the transport units, stacking points that may be transported. That's nice that those are clearly put on the, okay, there we go. Yep. Motor pool unit with a movement allowance of 7, and this motor pool, I guess, can transport 1 stacking point. That's nice. And player aid markers, looks like a nice amount of player aid markers. I personally cannot get enough player aid markers. They even have, I think, we'll get to it later, but I think that when the random event chits bring into effect conditions that apply to the end of the game, you get little reminder chits to put on the board, which I really like. If a game doesn't come with those, I sometimes will just make my own for that purpose. As memory aids, supply status markers, victory point hex markers, port level markers. Oh, nationality colors. You got the Allied light. I like this idea. It looks to me like the light units are actually printed in a lighter shade. I like that. So you got the regular Allied. That's not going to come through very well, but these light units are actually a lighter shade of desert tan. I like that. And the same thing with the Axis. These are normal Axis. Here's a light Axis there. It's lighter shade. I like that. That's cool. So the Vichy French are darker blue, Vichy light. German is field gray. German light, lighter shade of gray. Now, in general, yeah, this color scheme is not it's not extremely distinct, but it's enough under normal light. It's nice that it's not, you know, a rainbow array across the map. But I guess for some players those might be fairly close. I guess for some players those Vichy French black numbers against that Vichy French blue might be a little hard to read. Again, it's really not that bad, and but those numbers again could have done with perhaps very, very slight white outlining. All right, enough of that. I guess the components of this game really do draw a lot of attention. Basically, they are very nice. So we have an Axis and an Allied player aid card. So here we have on each one, we have the Axis special events summarized, and we have the Allied special events summarized. So just real quick, the Axis, active Alawis, active Druze, German commandos again, Turkish armor, transit through Turkey, quicker mobilization, German paratroops, Croix de Guerre, shift odds column 1 to the right when attacking or 1 to the left when defending. Okay, Desert Raiders. So not too many events, but just enough, I guess, to make it interesting, and I'm sure to help replayability. Allies also have the Alawis Revolt, Druze Revolt, Commando Brigade, Diplomats active. Cancels. This event cancels one of Axis events A, B, or E. Early Iraq conclusion. Allied player receives an additional supply point in Iraq holding box. More replacements. And free French morale. Interesting. So then each oh, I'm sorry. There were more on the back. Okay. All right. Well, I'll continue on then. So the Allied special events did not end with free French morale. We still have Victoria Cross, placements from Egypt, cavalry raid, saboteurs, radio intercepts, submarines, extra supply, crack pilots, additional air unit, Druze defect, and shaky light units. So it sure seems like this amount of special events would really help replayability, really change things up. So the Axis special events to continue on: Cavalry Raid, Saboteur Spies, Vichy Destroyers, Vichy Battleship Convoy, Air Interdiction, German Air Force, German Tourist. Play during any combat phase. The Axis player chooses either A, cancel Allied event K, which is Saboteurs, or B, any one Axis light unit chosen by the Axis player is not light for combat this phase. Huh, interesting. Rally light troops. Alright, so then each player has, I think these are identical, each player on the inside of the player aid card has, yeah, they look identical. Okay, has all the game tables. Okay, so we have almost a whole page, about 2/3 of a page terrain effects chart. Take a look at movement eligibility chart, is at the bottom of the same page. We have a CRT, which actually looks very familiar to other Phone Boris designs, 1-4 to 8-1. This is a 1-die-6 combat results, though, not D10. And we have very familiar attacker retreat, 1 or 2 hexes, defender retreat the same, attacker 1 and 2 step losses, defender 1, 2, and 3 step losses, and all defending units are eliminated. We do have, again, which so far I'm enjoying these asterisked results that I've seen before in Phone Boris design. So these asterisk results that are peppered through the center, I guess, the center diagonal down the, but it's not uniform. I don't think it's uniform. These asterisk results may require additional losses. See Rule 12.24. I think that has to do with extra armor losses, and I think another category. And I like this. Major battle, which obviously must be defined in the rules, requires both attacker and defender to suffer an automatic 1-step loss in addition to any CRT result. I'm starting to pay more attention to and like, for simulation value, combat results mechanics, which at least recognize the pure bulk of units involved. Major battle, more forces involved, more baseline losses for both sides, regardless of the outcome. Yeah, so I'll be interested in seeing this in effect here in this game, but just the basic concept that modifiers or extenuating circumstances aside, in addition to pure random unpredictability, I didn't mean that to go together. I'm talking about the unpredictability of combat. All that stuff aside, attrition or losses is in some meaningful way a function of troops engaged. The bombardment table, naval transport table, bomber effectiveness table, artillery fire support chart. So this has attacker versus defender, attacker +3 or more, odds column shift 2 to the right, attacker +1, +2, none are equal, and then the similar pattern for the defender. So column shifts for, it looks like a comparison of attacker to defender fire support. Supply point capture table and Vichy surrender table. Those are the charts and tables. Oh, go back to these. Assembled on the player aid card. So movement point cost for terrain is 1, 2, 3. Armor and armored car units can only enter mountain along road or trail. That sounds familiar. Other terrain in hex. Main road, 1/2 MP. Negates hex side cost, okay. Minor road, 1 MP in rough hills or mountain, 1/2 MP in all other hexes. Similar again, familiar, very familiar. Trail, 1/2 the cost of other terrain in the hex and hex side crossed. Very familiar. I like that again, as I've mentioned before, I think. Prohibited hex sides, escarpment prohibited, swamp prohibited, lava prohibited. Interesting. River effects on combat. Shift 1 column left. Okay, so we got column shifts. Defense strength doubled, except armor and armored car units. Okay, so mountain give a defense double, except armor and armored car units. Makes sense. And 1 column left. So column shifts or strengths doubled. Down here we got the movement eligibility chart. We have different types of movement. So we got requires movement supply for full movement allowance, air transport, naval transport, exploitation movement, strategic movement, and motor pool movement, and retreat through enemy zone of control. So then we have, okay, nice, rules reference, motorized units, yes or no, and non-motorized units, yes or no, with some notes. Ooh, that looks like a handy chart. And then expanded sequence of play. I think I'm going to break here. What's nice, at least for a game like this, the thing I like about this expanded sequence of play, let's say 2 things. One, when I read an expanded sequence of play, it really helps me to visualize how the game is going to play out. Good examples of play do the same thing, but I can get that from expanded sequence of play as well. Obviously, it's a good quick reference. Obviously, it helps keep the flow of the game moving. So for all those player reasons, I like expanded sequence of play. But the other thing, the other reason why I like these, and especially for a game like this, is that I'm going to use, when I talk about the rules in the rule book, I'm going to go by the expanded sequence of play, right through each step, through each phase, segment, and step, and then talk about the corresponding rules, and what's interesting or different. So this has all been a first preview, thinking about playing Slouch Hats and Eggshells, which is, yes, is definitely continuing my focused look at Fonbori's designs. I'm definitely in a mental groove with his design philosophy and approach and mechanics. There's so much that I like from what I've seen. Although I have to say, I like a lot of chit pull games as well, and there are definitely pluses to that design approach. But this, the games of Fonbori's that I'm actually playing here, I'm really enjoying. So I'm sure I'll continue on with more another preview of this game.